Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Pandemic Poetry Night. I'm Cheryl Benton. I'm the founder and publisher of The Three Tomatoes, and I'm the founder of The Three Tomatoes Book Publishing. And we are so excited that you're joining us tonight for what I think is going to be a really special evening that you're all going to relate to in what has been such a difficult year for all of us. But I promise you that it's going to be inspiring, and we're going to end on a wonderful, hopeful note as well. So I'm so excited to present four wonderful poets this evening who I've had the honor to publish all of their books, and three of them were actually written and published during this pandemic, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. So now I want to start to introduce them to you. So the first one I'm bringing in is Maddy Epstein Steinhart. Maddy was born and raised in Brooklyn, and she's been writing poetry since she was 8 years old. And she says it gave her an internal voice when she felt powerless. She's a retired New York City teacher, a media literacy specialist, and a mental health advocate. We published her first book of poetry, which is called Put Your Boots On and Dance in the Rain, actually a year ago. I think it's we're celebrating the anniversary of that, which is terrific. And believe me, when I published your first book of poetry, I had no idea that a year later we would have published three additional books. So that's pretty amazing. So we're so happy that you are here tonight and that you started us all off with the poetry trend. Next up is Stephanie Sloan. Welcome, Stephanie. So glad you're here. Stephanie was born and raised in the Bronx. She is the author of Dear Me, which is a really poignant book of poems and also photographs that she took during the pandemic. But she started to write her poetry after she lost her husband of 58 years, who actually died just as the lockdown was starting. So it's a very interesting and very from the heart, very personal book. And Stephanie has had a very eclectic career encompassing several creative endeavors, including the art and the theater worlds. Next up is Nicole Freezer Rubens. She's another New Yorker. In fact, all of our poets are born and raised in New York. She was raised in Manhasset, and like Maddy, she's also been writing poems since childhood. And The Long Pause and the Short Breath is her beautiful book. It's really a love story to New York told in poems and beautiful photography. And Nicole also had a career in the art world. In fact, she and Stephanie actually worked together at one time. There's a lot of crossovers here with this group. And now she has her own boutique interior design firm. And now we're bringing in another Brooklyn girl, Carol Ostrow. Carol was crowned Miss Brooklyn at the age of 5. She's a former Las Vegas showgirl. She's a fashion model who became a successful off-Broadway producer. And she's also president of the Actors Temple, and she's produced many, many fundraisers for them. And her book is called Poems for My Pandemic Poem. And this actually is her first time writing poetry. So I'm thrilled to have you all here tonight. So what was really interesting when we talked about putting this evening together, and I had a chance to go back and review all of your poems and how we would pull this evening together, what I realized was there were actually so many recurring themes in all of your books and things that we've all gone through. And let's face it, this has really been an emotional roller coaster for all of us. And through your poetry tonight, we're going to take that roller coaster ride with you. But as I said, we're going to end up on a high note. But what I want to start off today is a poem from Maddy's book, which is Put Your Boots On and Dance in the Rain. And it's called Rainy Days, and it actually inspired the title of her book.
Rainy days. Trick is to make it look easy. Take the higher plane and ground. Fake it till you make it. The butterflies will be in your gut. You will never be sure. Be your own true self. The naysayers won't stop talking. You will come through shining because nothing is easy. You are the only one to find happiness and gratitude, despite the rainy days. Put on your boots and dance.
That's terrific. So certainly one of the themes, and something that we've all had to get used to this year, is 6 feet apart and what it's like to have to social distance. So we're going to start off with, first I'm going to put up this beautiful, one of Nicole's beautiful images called 6 Feet Apart. And she's going to read one of her poems, which starts on March 25th.
Everyone is smiling during the crisis, and I'm smiling back and cocking my head as I walk in Central Park during the COVID-19 shutdown, lockdown, reset, shelter in place, quarantine, isolation, pause. Semantics do not matter. It always killed me when running or walking on lakeside paths in Florida or Connecticut when I had to say good morning to all of the strangers in my way. New Yorkers simply did not do that. Now, these novel nods and acknowledgments, even from behind a few pale blue masks, are extraordinary connections. I love my neighbor from 6 feet apart, and for a split second, we are a community.
That's beautiful. Such a beautiful poem. And Stephanie,
Yes.
you have a couple of poems that you also wrote on this theme, and I'm going to have you read those. And on the second one, I'm going to bring up a couple of the photos that you took as well.
Okay. First is May 9th, 2020. Don't touch. What are the long-term implications of not being able to touch another human being? Babies who are denied being held, nuzzled, and touched can even die. Isn't touching a natural instinct? What will happen to us? Is there a repository somewhere where former touch and being touched can be saved? And then, June 6th, 2020, this is what it's come to. Can you see me?
Yes, we have your poetry up here, your image.
Okay. Another outing, after another 9 days indoors, meeting a friend in the street with nowhere to go. Settling at a bus stop bench, trying to stay 6 feet apart, while signaling the empty buses that approach. Don't stop here.
That's beautiful. And Maddy, you have a beautiful poem too on this topic, and it's called Pandemic Poetry.
Who do you touch? Who touches you? Do you have regrets? Regret being kind? Did you light up someone's life? Stop being haunted by what you have done. What about what you have not done? Then do it. Make time and effort, but we should be used to that. Rekindle the spirit. Know the difference between empathy and sympathy. Same goes with accept and accept. Know and live by your values as well as your priorities. Some are meant to be broken, but not those golden to you. Change is the constant. Be ready for it. Touch spirits and souls. Did you matter to the world? You control what you want to contribute, even now. Remember that. What we take for granted, so many wish they had.
That's beautiful. So, Carol, you have a poem now called, also in the same category of touching and being apart from people, called Thinking of Times Past.
Yes, thank you. What have we come to? I cannot see your face. We all look like thieves in the night. Once I saw your wrists, so lovely in lace, hands now dry, wrinkled from fright. I don't recognize this world of disease. How does the sun peek out with such ease? We need food, drinks, bad news gone forever. We need hope, hugging and dancing together. I'm a creator, a dreamer. I have these loves, not 6 feet away, forced to wear gloves. When will this be over?
That's a good question. Let's
Yeah.
all hope it's very, very soon. So there's certainly another theme as we got into lockdown and we got further into lockdown, and the world was just we were losing so many people, and so many of us were in despair. And there are a couple poems that I think really, really spoke to this really well. And Maddy, one of those is yours, and it's called "Stop the World."
Will there be mountains to climb and build? Will we take care or give up? The lesser of two evils, or at least I hope we will. Not sure about heaven or angels coming to greet us. The writers and lyricists will have their day. Will we throw away all wishes and dreams? There is too much noise. Missing the music. Nothing really makes sense. There is no cinema or theater now to let us forget. When we think of what used to be and all its charms, stop the world. Time to get off before we set off more alarms, no matter who it harms.
And Stephanie, your book starts off with what I learned during lockdown, and then you have a couple of other poems that you're going to read after that also follow in this theme of just really despair and really grief. And yours was very personal, but I know we were all feeling this. So if you could share those with us.
First is May 1st, 2020. What I learned during lockdown. Knowing it's going to be bad and being bad are two different things. How does one heal from the loss of a spouse? By moving forward. Impossible when movement is not permitted, not in any direction. Everyone says I'm strong. Am I? May 4th, 2020. Pretty prison. If someone had told me just a few months ago that I, a native New Yorker, would come to hate New York City, I wouldn't have believed them. Yet here I am now, in this pretty prison. And May 7th, abandonment. New York on lockdown. Apartment dwellers with second homes abandon their city abodes for points north and east, leaving the rest of us with views of empty apartments, drawn shades, half-empty buildings, desolate streets.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for that. So now we get into another theme and category that I think everyone will relate to, and this was food as comfort. And I think a lot of us are still battling what we've come to call the COVID-15, because I think there was definitely a lot of stress eating going on. But we're going to start out with Carol Ostrow's poem on this, which is not to feel guilty about this.
Forgive me, Stephanie, this is so different from your serious poem, but we digress. Guilt is a waste of time. In this day of corona disease, I consume comfort food, if you please. What saves my life, well, certainly not dietish, is a bagel, tomato, and fresh tuna fish. Oozing cheese on buttered bread does more for me than going to bed. This reaction sure does play with my head. I hate the thought of what calories will do, but now who cares? I'm not feeling blue. Martha's cookies called kitchen sink put me in a mood, you'd say, pretty pink. Raisins, and almonds, and brown sugar now. So much better than the average of Dow. My hindquarters are about to grow its size, but wearing pajamas, I do realize that 2020, in my hindsight, will be the time of terrible fright. But oh my Lord, I put up a fight. Never forget that weight can be lost, but mental health is worth the cost. Bring on that cake with buttercream frost. Does that entice? Will you share a slice?
Whenever I hear that poem, yes, I immediately want a slice of that cake. And Nicole, you also had a theme on that. Yours definitely starts off more seriously because it starts out on April 1st and still realizing, wishing this had been an April Fool's joke. So let's read yours.
Okay, April 1st, 2020. I woke up this morning an April Fool and then remembered that hundreds of innocent people will die today. With all the unpredictability, this they know. Yesterday was a down day for me. I went to the New York Blood Center to donate whole blood. Like masks and toilet paper, there is not enough. After 2 temperature checks, typing on a shared computer keyboard, and a finger prick, I was rejected. My iron level was a fraction away from viable. I wanted to do something, even a small act the size of a pint of Haagen-Dazs chocolate ice cream, to help the cause. So I went home, washed my hands hard, and stayed home. I sat on the couch again and FaceTimed my mother-in-law while I ate straight from the pint.
Thank you, Nicole. I know we all had a lot of those moments and probably still are actually. So now another theme, and it's one that I know we all love so much because in the midst of all of this in New York City, something truly wonderful happened. And that was these very special salutes to our heroes when people in New York, you still couldn't go out, but outside of your windows, every 7 o'clock, people were clanging their pots and pans. And what I really love is that both Nicole and Stephanie wrote poems just a couple of days apart on that topic. And I love hearing this, and I love hearing each of their takes. So Stephanie, we're going to start with yours, which actually started on May 18th.
At 7 p.m., inspired by street sounds louder than usual, encouraged by an open window across the street, I opened mine and had my first bang on a pan. It only lasted a minute, but it felt good.
Thank you, Stephanie and Nicole. Oh, well, before you read yours, I'm going to show. I have a photograph from each of your books that you both took around this time. The left is a photo that Stephanie took from her window, and on the right is a photo from Nicole's book that she took from her window in her little Juliet balcony.
I just realized I can wear white again next week. Memorial Day will come and go. Best laid plans canceled. But on Monday, I can wear my summer uniform white jeans. For weeks now, I've been meaning to clean out my closet and move my heavy sweaters up high where my shorts hibernate for the winter. Early on in the pandemic, I kept busy cleaning out our cabinets and drawers. When I tackled the kitchen, I found I had 2 metal lids that no longer had pots. They became symbols for our 7 o'clock orchestra of applause. I leave them on my dining room floor by my slip-on sneakers at the balcony door. Sometimes the late afternoon sun hits them just so, and the glint is beautifully blinding.
Well, thank you. Those were both beautiful, and that was certainly a very uplifting time in New York that all of us, even if we weren't in the city, when we saw those images, it helped us all feel like we were part of that. Salute to our heroes. So now we get to this point, which we're still in. We call it the new normal because life is just very different certainly than it was a year ago. And you all actually have poems that address what the new normal is. So Stephanie, we're going to start with actually 2 of yours, and I do have a couple of photos that I'll put up around those 2 from your book. And your first one starts on May 13th, and it's called What I Look Forward to.
A bell rings, and I find a mystery package outside my door. Sometimes it's food, sometimes laundry, sometimes a combination of goodies that don't go together. A book, underpants, emery boards, all in the same box. Left outside my door by mysterious strangers whose faces I never see. When the package makes it inside, there it sits with Second Life. 24 hours with cardboard, 3 hours with paper, 2 days with cloth, a junkyard of assorted mismatched items that felt essential when they were ordered. May 20, 2020, what I'm getting used to. Living in an apartment no for us both. In a neighborhood we would explore together, cooking for one, dining alone, endless pandemic days. In walking the hall to the incinerator room, masked and gloved, really be the highlight of my day?
Well, and we have more on this topic of the new normal, and Carol Ostrow has her take on the new normal, which is another theme we can definitely all relate to because it's around that toilet paper issue.
A morning ritual. I have this talent with rare toilet paper, like a gift, a talent, a rare, great dressmaker. I fold, I use, I fold again. Over the bowl, you know. No more space. It's time to throw. I do let go. Sometimes it's true. I feel like fainting. This paper so rare as a Picasso painting. Did you ever think we would come to this? Well, forgive me now. I have to diss. Oh, goddamn, no paper and I have to piss.
Oh, that one makes us laugh. That always makes me laugh every time I hear that one. So then as we got into early June, we started to see so many of our favorite stores and places all boarded up. And again, within a couple of days of each other, both Nicole and Stephanie wrote poems around this, and I'll also pop up their photos. And I think on this was June 3rd, Nicole, you wrote a poem on this topic.
This is just an excerpt. All of the avenues have become a sea of all of the avenues have become a sea of plywood storefronts. In 2 days, I have adapted, and the visual sting of my wooden city has worn off.
And this is actually an image. The one on the left is one that Nicole has in her book, and the one on the right is one that Stephanie has in her book. And then Stephanie, you wrote this poem on June 5th called Things Change.
The rare times I emerge from my apartment, I usually walk east, past stores and restaurants, all closed. On occasion, I head west, past boutiques, galleries, museums, all closed. What a shock to now see Madison Avenue, once elegant, all boarded up.
And then, Carol, you have a poem called Thinking Too Much.
Yes. Oh my, how life can change on a dime. I think of the virus all the time. I meditate, and in my deep reverie, I ask, who will make a delivery? Shall I call Morton Williams for my important fill-ins? Perhaps Fresh Direct will have food to eat, and hopefully order a frozen treat. I used to think about business all day, how to earn money for bills to pay. Now I dream of toilet paper packs instead of theater and second acts. Thank goodness for my friends who do call. They are the best, and I love them all. Encouraged by them to walk and bend, but actually, I will pray today that all this will end. In any case, please take this cue. A very happy Mother's Day to you. And that was on Mother's Day, obviously.
Yes, thank you for that. So then in the midst of the pandemic and everything else that we were all going through, we had the protest. And we have a poem now from Maddy, and it's called Ticking Clock in the Heart.
Yes. Too many cliches. Hyperbole and reality got mixed up. Where is peace and calm with all people and things lost? Why can't we get found? There is so much more for all of us. Do we still have time to get it right with all the wrongs surrounding us?
That is so well done. And now I'm going to show an image that there are actually two images from Nicole's book because she also wrote on this topic, but her images are so powerful. They really kind of say it all. So Nicole, yours was written on May 30th.
This is the verse I did not want to write. This is the plot twist I did not see coming now, but it has been coming for centuries. George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis at the white moves and brutal police. There is no way to make sense of the video we were all still home to watch over and over on repeat on our scratched and cracked screens. This is the news story that finally outran Corona. This is the novel, festering nightmare. The nation is setting itself on futile fire in protest.
Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. And then Stephanie, you too were writing poems and looking out your window and taking pictures of what was going on with the protest as well. So I'm going to start off with your poems. I think you have 3 of them, and I'll show one of your images as well.
June 1st, 2020, last night I cried. Unlike before, it was not for personal loss, but for what is happening to my country. Demonstrations in cities, fire, looting, violence, protesters, angry, shouting, shattering glass, shattering lives. June 3rd, 2020 is curfew. Sirens and police cars below, helicopters above. Where am I? This doesn't feel like New York, or even like the United States. It feels like a war-torn country, only instead of hiding in a bunker, I'm confined to a luxury apartment. Does it really matter? The feelings must be the same. And June 4th, protest. Strange quietude calls to me. I open my window for an unexpected surprise. Marchers chant, Black Lives Matter, as they pass, an orderly mass parade. They wave to those of us who watch, and I return their waves.
Thank you. And I love how your poems were so closely related at that time, and your images and the feelings that you all evoked around that issue. And now, which I think was so wonderful because we were going through these very difficult times, but as we got closer into May, people started to feel more hopeful, and you could start to feel the hope, and it was spring and people were starting to be able to get out. And we're going to move into the theme of hope, and we're going to start with Nicole's poem, and I'll also pop up one of her images, which I think you wrote on May 5th, Nicole.
I saw something purple in the grass. I thought it was a fallen hydrangea, but then saw it was a surgical glove. Now there are steep pines littering used masks and gloves. A man in a Parks Department provided surgical mask is mowing the lawn adjacent to the field hospital. Another is weed whacking. The sounds from their machinery hum together melodically. The grass keeps growing. They cut for the symphony and to the maintenance of hope. The scent of renewal breaks through the fabric filter over my face, and no one can see me smile.
And Stephanie, your book actually ends on June 8th, which is when phase one started and the lockdown actually ended. So we'll have you read that one.
Phase 1. Today the lockdown is officially over after 100 days. How will that change our lives? It has already changed mine. It has forced me to figure out how I want to live the rest of my life. Happily.
Well, that's beautiful. And then Nicole, you also wrote a poem on June 8th as well.
New York City is open, coincidentally, on the 100th day since the first case here. Phase 1 has begun. I am excited for the first time since the week when I thought the death toll would peak. Free masks and New York State clean hand sanitizer are being handed out atop the subway stairs. I took a bottle as a limited edition souvenir of this very strange time in my life. I positioned it on display on my bookcase. The fountains outside the shuttered Met Museum have been turned back on. Once more they spray as they sing and dance over the black stone basins, now shining and reflecting the flags at full mast again.
And life was starting to return to the city we love. And then, Maddy, you have a poem. You saw this time as music, and this poem is called Lyrics.
It has always been about the words, enjoying and sharing the music, the rhyme and the rhythm, feeling and memories. Just don't want to hear the sad songs. Not new ones anyway. Reminding us that we are more alone than we need to be, having to love harder and more gently because we might break. Action doesn't always speak louder than words. Ideas and words work in tandem. Lyrics awaken me. Lyrics remind me of yesterday. Lyrics remind me that there are more songs to be sung. Lyrics, after all, are poems. They wake you at all hours of the day, wanting to be written down and remembered.
I love that beautiful thought of more songs to be sung. And that really ties in right now with Carol's beautiful poem too, called Life Goes On.
I'm home tonight with nothing to do, not feeling either happy or even blue. This time's so strange for me and you too. This COVID shifted our lives through and true. Once upon a time, so busy the days flew by. I went to the office, then lunch on the fly. Sometimes I never saw the daylight or the sky, choosing ballet, opera, or theater that night, being with crowds, rushing, laughing with delight. All that joy we took for granted. Nothing I felt then is now recanted. Now I find that life takes a turn. All needs to be met, new fires to burn. I even look forward to new tech to be learned. I am still here, and so are you. There is still so much to look forward to.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And Nicole, we're going to end this section that we've called Hope with your poem, which is on June 14th. And that was actually the day that you decided to stop writing the poems about the pandemic. So share that one. It's pretty special.
Poem, I Put You Down. It is time to deal with the regular world again. Thank you for steering me through the tumultuous season that forever transformed my family and me, and preparing us to live with pride in challenge and change.
Those are all so beautiful. I love all those last poems, and I love that you were all able to get to that point where you you were able to see the hope, and to be able to share that with all of us tonight is so special. So what I wanted to do now, because you're my four favorite poets now, of course, and now you've had a chance to hear each other's poems, and I know you've read each other's books. So I would love to just hear some of your impressions about hearing your sister poet's poems written during this time. So Maddy, let's start with you. What are your thoughts here?
I never get the opportunity to talk to other poets the way I talk to you because I've read your books. I've read other poems and I've reviewed them, but all of our pieces fit, if that makes sense. And that's what I got out of this. We all fit somehow.
That's beautiful. Nicole, what about you? What were your impressions?
I have to say that the fact that the four of us were able to create so much out of such a devastating time for everybody is something that I am proud of all of us for, and anybody who could use the, whatever the deepest, darkest days gave us to feed their creativity. I mean, kudos to us.
Well said. And Stephanie?
I it's just nice knowing I'm not alone and that other people were experiencing the very same thing and handling it the same way by writing. And I think that's amazing. I was struck by the fact that Nikki and I were living a few blocks apart, writing very similar things on in a different way at the same time. And I don't know. I like that Carol was able to see the humor when I was feeling anything but. But so that's good to know. And Maddie's take on everything was also, you know, interesting and made me feel better knowing about it.
And Carol, what would you have to say about this wonderful group here?
Well, I find it very exciting that I'm even considered part of the group because my words were not. I mean, we all experienced this serious, terrible time, and we expressed it in our own way through our own experience. But we're all sisters under the skin. And if we used humor or we used sorrow, we said it from the heart. And I understood every word that everybody was expressing. And it just spurred me on to do even more because words are so important and they're so beautiful when you use them as human beings to express how you feel. And every one of you did that so beautifully.
Well,
Thank you.
that is wonderful. I applaud all four of you. So now, what I asked each of our poets here tonight to do was to actually read a poem from one of the others, and I think you'll find this very interesting. So Nicole is reading a poem from Stephanie Sloan's book, Dear Mead. It was written on May 29th, and it's titled Good versus Bad.
The bad memories of those last few months are fading. Replacing them are the good. Trips, vacations, celebrations, parties, warm dinners with friends, family get-togethers. But some will never fade, like a Zoom funeral that many couldn't join, like an urn that I can't bring home, like boxes of photos that I can't view. When life returns to somewhat normal, there will be a memorial. Will that be a good thing? Maybe.
That is great. And Stephanie's going to read an excerpt from Nicole's book, The Long Pause and the Short Breath. But I'm going to first put up this image because it's such a powerful image. And by the way, Nicole, where did this image appear
Oh, so
recently?
this is one of the most incredible photos that I took during the months of lockdown. This is in front of Lenox Hill Hospital on 77th Street and Lexington Avenue, which we could see from our window. And every night from the very beginning, I think of March 27th maybe is when people started their 7 o'clock clap because of care. My family and I got out on our balcony and we applauded and we banged the pots and pans. And some days were crowded and some days were not. And on this day, which was June 5th, I believe, we decided to go downstairs for the first time to the hospital. And it was amidst all the protests that were happening in our neighborhoods. And it was a rainy evening. And one night we went out, and the doctors and nurses and whoever else is in this photo were holding up a sign that says, "You clap for us, we kneel for you." Hashtag BLM. So
That is the most powerful. That's the most powerful image, and our love and our hearts go out to all of them during that time, and unfortunately now as well, as our hospitals are becoming more overwhelmed again, and more is being put on them. So Stephanie, we're going to have you read Nicole's poem. It's an excerpt from one of her chapters around this theme.
Each morning for the last 20 years, I open my bedroom shades, and the hospital is the first thing I see. Last fall, Lenox Hill announced a grand expansion project with a 10-year, 3-phase construction plan, and the tallest towers in my zip code that would defy zoning laws and darken the city, casting a trendy charcoal shadow on Central Park's green. I was angry. Every time I walked by the hospital buildings, I felt trapped, unable to sell my apartment for years. Now, I am trapped and angry for very different reasons. Though, as I process the noble impact of COVID, all of my fury drains from my veins. I instantly see the physical presence of gleaming limestone and mostly brick that contains Lenox Hill Hospital as a fortress of goodness, housing loyal human heroes.
That was really beautiful. And now Maddy is going to read a poem from Carol Ostrow's book, Poems from My Pandemic Pen, and it's called Self-Love.
Hope I do this well, Carol. How much space do I take up in the world? When I stretch out, my body full unfurled. Of course, the mind you can stretch to anywhere. I can't reach from here to over there. Where is over there? Sometimes I feel so very small. Actually, I'm a size 10 and quite tall. That matters little, if at all, unless self-esteem, self-respect isn't around to recall. When needed the most, when feeling so low, especially when getting in life a low blow. Somebody called me a nobody a few days ago. Does that make it actually so? The answer unequivocally is no. The only thing in the end that really counts is loving myself in bigger amounts, or I could never love or care about anyone else.
Brava.
Yes, well done.
Thank
and now
you.
Cheryl gets to read one of Maddy's poems from her book, Put Your Boots On and Dance in the Rain, and it's called More Than Enough.
You are good enough. You are sound enough, unlike any other, because you're original. Going through the faces and spaces, you listened and stopped hearing, knowing that being different was a gift, not something to be ashamed of or bullied about. You will take your place, find your 10 minutes of fame or more, telling those who share your life that they have already known. They may be seeing you for the very first time. Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Those are all so beautiful. I
welcome.
hope you enjoyed hearing your poetry read by another poet, because that was really so special. So I personally cannot thank you all enough from the bottom of my heart. You are all so special. The way that during certainly I think the most challenging times any of us have faced in our lives, the way that each of you was able to go through go through this time. And Steffi, especially you, because you lost your husband too during this time. And Maddy, I know you lost your mother like so many other people, but you were able to go inside yourself and do something creative with that time and to bring your feelings out. And then the best thing you did was to share it with the world and share it with all of us. And I know we were talking about this earlier. It's one thing to write a book or to write a poem. It's an entirely other thing to, because these are so deeply personal, to expose yourself and give that gift to the world. So I applaud all four of you, and I know that everyone watching tonight does that too. And we're entering into the Thanksgiving and the holiday season. And while it's been a difficult year, I know that we all will find things that we are grateful for. And all of us who are still here are certainly grateful for that. I'm grateful for all of you. No matter how you're spending Thanksgiving this year, some of us on this call are going to be by ourselves. Carol was saying she's alone, but she has a friend dropping off a turkey dinner for her. Stephanie's going to spend it alone, but she's going to cook herself something special. Maddy's going to be with her sister. Nicole's got her kids coming home. We're all have found different ways that are different from past years, but ways to celebrate and make this still a special, thankful, grateful holiday season. And I'm grateful to each and every one of you for sharing yourselves tonight. And we want to end, we are going to have a toast at the very, very end. So we have one last poem that Maddy wrote during this time. And I think it's just a perfect last poem for us to end with. And it's called This Thanksgiving.
To my friends and family and my sister poets, and of course, Cheryl. You are here for another holiday. Many families will have one empty place at the table. Some in their hearts, no matter how you celebrate this holiday, find time to be grateful. Even this year may very well be the most difficult. Give your time or support. Make someone's day, because a smile or a kind word goes a very long way. Share a meal or serve one to those who have no other Thanksgiving. Be well and safe. Memories are our most cherished gifts.
Beautiful.
That's beautiful, Maddy. So I want to lift a glass to our poets and to all of you there, and just say, I want to wish you a happy Thanksgiving, however you're going to celebrate it, to being grateful, to being thankful, to being hopeful. This is going to be very different next year. I hope we're back next Thanksgiving around this time of the year to celebrate more poems from this group, whether it's in a new book you've written, or I know they've all continued to write poetry. And I think those will be a very different kind of poems. So I thank you. We're going to close out with the video we started. I want to remind you, all of these, by the way, that their books are fabulous. Every one of these books makes an incredible gift this year. And, it isn't really so much about things this year, but about experiences and special things that we can share. And each one of these books is a special gift that you could give someone. So cheers, ladies. I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to put your little video up. And then when I end, hang in here with me, ladies.